So last night I just saw Spider-Man Brand New Day, and there were showings from as early as a week ago, so I somehow managed to avoid spoilers. That's mostly because, as I see now, there just wasn't terribly much to spoil. And by the title and the thumbnail, this isn't clickbait for the 10 people that might see this, but I didn't like it. I'm not on social media, so I have avoided any reviews on the movie, so this isn't someone influencing me or somebody else's opinion. Obviously, this is going to be a full review / spoiler discussion. It's just how I feel, and I need to talk about the individual moments that made me feel like that. Of course, I'm going to start with what I liked because that list is shorter. For starters, the visual quality of this movie is unlike anything that I've ever seen before. Every scene is just like, wow, I am completely captivated by how good this looks. There is a bit of wonky green screen as Spidey is like swinging in the beginning, but beyond that, it's damn near flawless. I did see a video from New Rockstars pop up into my feed titled, "Why Brand New Day Looks So Good," so clearly it's like a subject of discussion, and I just waited to watch that until after I saw the movie because I wanted to see it for myself. Secondly, Spider-Man's suit in this one is incredible. I know people love the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit, and that one is incredible also, but in terms of maintaining that color, plus the animated eyes that he's always had in the MCU, plus the larger spider symbol, I love this one more than any other. And last, I liked how they were exploring Peter's secondary mutation. That was probably the most compelling part of the movie for me, when you see him battling with losing control, and they didn't have to rehash a symbiote arc to do that. Now onto everything that I didn't like. My number one biggest complaint is that this feels like a 2.5 hour advertisement for an X-Men film. I was going to say mutants in the MCU, but we already got that term in Wakanda Forever and Ms. Marvel. I can't wrap my head around why Jean Grey is the villain of this Spider-Man film. Just like Spider-Man, who is struggling with control without another symbiote arc, we get to see that Jean is going down this dark path without having to rehash the Dark Phoenix storyline. But I don't think that making one of Marvel's most legendary characters do all of this crazy shit is the way to go, especially as her introduction into the MCU. And then, of course, she just leaves at the end with zero consequences, kind of like Scarlet Witch at the end of WandaVision. Even at the end, Spider-Man gives her the "remember who you are" speech, and he tells her that she's not a killer. And I'm just like, I remember when she mind controlled that guy an hour ago and she had him hit by the car. And I also remember when she tried to infiltrate the Department of Damage Control headquarters and she had that one guard shoot the other guard. Like, that just happened and I remember it. My second big issue is that I feel like this movie promised a grounded Spider-Man story where we'll get to see Spider-Man enter a new chapter, and this just wasn't that. He spends the entire movie trying to reconnect with Ned and MJ, and I'm just thinking like, I wish both of these characters weren't even here. With No Way Home, it felt like a conclusion of sorts, at least for one movie, where Spider-Man was going to lose that part of his life. And while that movie was nearly 5 years ago, both in real life and in the universe, I felt like they just need to give it a rest. And then I'm also questioning why the hell is the Punisher even in this movie? I know it's because Jon Bernthal is incredibly popular and they're probably trying to soft launch another Punisher movie. But they already had a 45-minute extended advertisement in Punisher One Last Kill that just came out a few months ago. So since it's a big Disney movie, there's not going to be any swearing and there's no gore, and the entire gratifying part of the Punisher is removed. I don't think that the dynamic between Spider-Man and Frank was even interesting enough to justify his appearance in this movie. They don't need to rehash the famous scene with Daredevil and the Punisher arguing about the morality of killing criminals, but there needs to be time spent with Spidey just yelling at him about how twisted Frank is. Instead, they just joke about this thing that happened in Staten Island, and it's kind of funny, I guess. The heroes of the Marvel Universe should not like Frank Castle, not only because he's mostly an asshole, but he's a brutal murderer. And before I forget, how the hell is Castle just strolling through the city in his van and bringing Peter to a hospital without immediately being arrested? He is a criminal. The Hulk is also here, but his presence is much more important to the story concerning the inhibitor, even though when Peter goes to talk to Bruce, he just basically figures out how to construct the inhibitor himself. The real missed opportunity was to have that famous panel where Spidey and the Hulk are talking, and then the Hulk reveals that he still remembers Peter Parker as Spider-Man. There could have been a brief moment to really emphasize how the Hulk and Bruce are separate personalities, especially with Jean Grey manipulating his mind. I don't think that the door is completely closed on Bruce and the Hulk, but Kevin Feige has openly talked about how the rights to the character in film are a bit in flux, so I'm not holding out hope. Speaking of the comics, I felt like the trailers were really feeding into the comic book fan realm, and I don't think it delivered on those aspects either. For example, Tarantula and Boomerang are only in it for a few frames. Tombstone got maybe half a minute, but the biggest offenders were Scorpion and the Hand. I know that Matt Gargan is supposed to be the Scorpion because I love Spider-Man. However, if you've never even seen this guy before, where the hell did he get this giant scorpion suit? And isn't it a huge part of his character that the suit is unable to come off? When it comes to the Hand, I get that we're in a fantastical universe, but you can't just casually drop in a passing news report that there are superpowered ninjas running around New York. Oh, you want to know more about that, huh? Well, make sure you watch Daredevil Born Again Season 3. Daredevil is my favorite character in comics, so obviously I'm very familiar with the Hand, who are one of his main villains. But what about someone who mostly or even totally consumes Marvel through movies? Do they now have to do homework to feel invested? The Punisher was recently that leader of the Hand for a bit in the comics. Why didn't they do anything with that? My next problem is that this whole mutants being hunted because they're different thing needs to be heavily tweaked. Obviously, the X-Men and mutants in general are an allegory for racism and homophobia and xenophobia. In the main Marvel universe, it also doesn't make much sense that they're hated while characters like the Fantastic Four are praised, but that's very similar to real life because racism and those phobias aren't really grounded in any logic. So I have to be generous with that, but in this universe, it doesn't really land. If Damage Control hunted down Jean and her sister to do experiments, why the hell are they not hunting down other superpowered individuals like Spider-Man or Miss Marvel? And now that I'm thinking about Disney Plus shows, where does the fucking Kingpin come into play in any of this, with him being the actual mayor of New York and making vigilantes illegal? Season 1 and 2 of Daredevil just came out last year and this year respectively. I remember those events, but why doesn't the MCU? My last big issue is the fact that there are 17 fucking heartfelt speeches in this movie. It's trying so hard to be personal. You know, Peter's sad, and then MJ feels like something is missing, and then MJ finds the letter, and then there's flashbacks to Spider-Man and Aunt May. Oh, but then Jean goes into Peter's mind, and then Aunt May gives her the speech instead. And by the time we got there, I'm just like, yo, I don't give a damn. The scenes with Peter and MJ are very good because they actually have chemistry. She waits for him to return, and after finding his letter, she tells him that she doesn't remember any of their past together. This seemingly is going to put an end to their relationship being reforged. But then, at the end of the movie, via their special handshake, it's revealed that Ned still has some dormant memories of the past. So clearly there is some type of path to them regaining their memories. I made a joke with my friend that it might have been easier if Peter just sold his marriage to the devil like he did in the comics, so all of this would be simple and he would understand that he can't get it back. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't look it up. It was basically reworked into No Way Home to have Doctor Strange do it instead of, you know, the devil. Nothing is permanent in comics, but comic book Peter still hasn't recovered from that moment. Simply put, I didn't enjoy this one. I saw a YouTube poll that voted this as the best Spider-Man movie ever by a huge margin. And this film did crack 900 million in the first weekend, which is absurd. We all know that only Spider-Man can pull damn near Avengers Endgame numbers. But I have to reinforce that I'm not just trying to go against the grain. I don't know specifically what people liked about this movie because, as I said, I'm not on social media and I didn't listen to any reviews yet. All I have is how it made me feel. I do appreciate how it's not just endless nostalgia bait, but some of the decisions were very odd and it didn't even land for me on an emotional level. This has been Universe Altering. Thank you for listening, and I'll see y'all in the next one.